Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024, The Movements, Government Reform Ideas. Now, this video is going to be on education. What we're doing here is proposing a new constitution for the United States of America, and it's going to replace the state constitutions and even create local constitutions. This is going to go to much more liberty, much more freedom, lot more limited government for the people who want to have limited government. People who want a bigger government, they can have bigger government. We're going to a competitive governing system of government. So let's go through the full reform real quick. I'm going to try to do it in about 5 minutes for the full Constitution. I have a lot of videos out there explaining everything. A lot of good reviews that are much longer. Then each part of this that I'm touching on in this 5 minutes, I'm going to have anywhere between 30 and 1 hour long videos dealing with every sector, every section of this Constitution. So let's go through it real quick, and we'll discuss how we're going to do education and how that's going to be addressed. So, first thing you have to understand is we separate all government power into 30 sectors. Anybody who's in charge of, let's say, being a diplomat is not in charge of the environment. If you're in charge of insurance, you're not in charge of food. If you're in charge of the courts, you're not in charge of land and water. If you're in charge of roads, you're not in charge of family law. We break all these things up. We multiply the number of governments, but we divide the power and give each part of the government 1/30. So that's highly important to understand that we multiply the number of governments, but then we divide the power and put 1/30 into each sector. So within each, and these are top level government officials, elected and selected government officials. So let's talk about selected and talk about the competitive governance part of it. So within each sector, so there's 30 of them at the city, state, and federal levels, 30 each. And we're going to have roughly 12 distinct competitive regulatory agencies. This is a competitive governance. These are full governmental systems with executive, legislative, and judicial powers. So on the rating system side, we have the same setup, but their product is high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives and making sure the ratings don't go so low as to create significant negative externalities. And we have a method for doing that. Those are full governmental systems too, with executive, legislative, and judicial powers. Then we have the parent sector board that just divides all the 30 sectors up. We have the sector board and the rating systems that's over top of each sector. That I say over top, they're made up of the representatives of the CRAs or of the RAs, and then they only do what monopolized government's allowed to do, which is only done if the representatives of the CRA says that there's too much negative externality going on. So let's go through a little bit. The Constitution has a really great preamble, a section on citizenship, general laws, bylaws are internal governance within each organization, governmental organization. Federal, state, and local, it deals with that. Original authorities, a teaching on how we have law in the first place, what level of government, whether within the CRA structure or within the federal, state, and local, has top level authority. Supermajority, if it goes monopolized governance, it takes a 70%. It's going to keep a lot more of the power and regulations at the CRA level and that you select. Parent sector board, how that's structured. CRA sector board, how that's structured. Competitive regulatory agencies, that's what 90% of this whole Constitution is. Everything else is to support this. The rating systems and the rating agencies are to give you high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives. You select yours. Taxation, everything still needs to be paid for. How we're going to do that, most of it's going to be CRA fees that you select. Debt, how we deal with transition from one system to the next. We're selling off all government power, just to let you know right now. But there's a lot. All government assets we're selling into the free enterprise system, and that's going to help pay off the debt. Not all of it, but it'll help pay off the debt, and we'll go from there. Pockets of freedom. It's an immigration and foreign policy. States partial acceptance per sector. So 5 minutes. I've pretty much gone through the whole Constitution. Let's take about 1 minute to go through the 30 sectors real quick. 5 in the charity system because we get rid of all government welfare. 5 in the foreign protection system. We have separate commander in chief, the top executive for compared to the top executive of the top diplomat. So they're two different people, and all five are different with different responsibilities. Significant, highly significant accountability, more than we have right now. So a lot more checks and balances, a lot more accountability. We switched from government heavy hand to a societal oversight role, and that's going to be able to stop a lot of negative externalities or a lot of power centers trying to oppress people. Anyway, the violent crime mitigation system going to go significantly into the free enterprise system with a lot better accountability and a lot better representation than we currently have in this current system. So look over all those videos. Healthcare, we did those videos. Financial, we have a great monetary policy within Sector 19. Insurance, we transition Social Security and Medicare within that one, and we just did a video on that. Right now it's July of 2021, and I plan on having the rest of these videos done probably by the middle of August, I would think. Okay, of 2021. Food, education, manufacturing, human resources and sales, identity, very important identity sector within this one. We're doing education right now. So environmental, work safety and disability, transportation, media communication, land and water. Okay, we're 6.5 minutes into this, and I wanted to give you an overview of the Constitution, of the structure of government. Again, there's longer videos, 30 minutes, hour longs, that just does an overview. But then there's good long videos, 30 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes, dealing with each one of the sectors. So I've done most of the sectors by now. I'm up to about two-thirds of the way through the sectors. I think I have about 5 or 6 more I need to get done. Okay, Sector 22 is education. The education sector is established, which means it's given a certain set of responsibilities, certain set of authorities, you need to regulate education, and there's going to be parameters around where that is. Establishment means that you get roughly 12 different CRAs. As long as you get 5% of the citizens to join you, your CRA, you create a CRA, and they govern you. Other people, let's say you have a group of 7 and a group of 11 and another group of 12, as long as you're not over 20 and you're above 5, you get to establish your CRA. So like-minded people will go with like-minded people and they will govern themselves. So this is a competitive governing system, and these are people who group together to govern themselves. They're like-minded. So it's so important to understand in this realm of education. The purpose of the education sector is to regulate education. So this is birth through death. We have government way too involved in daycare, to preschool, to K through 12, to colleges. They're involved, and it's raising the price. It's decreasing the value. We have lower value, higher prices. We have corruption. We have government buying our parental rights away from us and doing a lot of really bad things with a lot of different things out there. This is not this video is not about whether the public school system is doing a great job or bad job. This is to show a new way of doing it. This is the new school choice type of way. You select your school board. Just imagine right now, instead of electing your school board, you select your school board. You have 12 different school boards out there, and you as a parent, you get to select your school board. And then your school board regulates the students that selected them. As long as they get 5% of the students, they get to regulate them. Wow, what would that do to America and for education? And only one has to stay secular. To meet them, let's say we're not going all the way to this system right now, but let's just say we want to do one simple reform. You have 12 different school boards per city for the state, for the federal government. 12 different school boards, not one. You select it. You can have many school boards running one school and having one school building of 100 classrooms and having 5 or 6 school boards, 5 or 6 schools within one school building. There's no problem with that. and then they get to teach what they want to teach. New math versus old math. History the way they want to teach it. English, how they want to teach English. What to emphasize, whether it's music or math or STEM or whatever they want to do. Do they want to go farther into sports? Do they want to go farther into manufacturing? Do they want to be a college prep course, a school? Do they want to be a manufacturing tech type of school where they're teaching somebody real skills of plumbing and welding and AC mechanics and the like? So that's what I'm talking about. Every school gets to do what they want to do. They go one step further, and then they get to fund the way they want to fund. They tax the way they want to tax. They only tax their members. They only fund their members. So once you go into a school board, you get taxed and be funded by your school board. There's a lot to that, and we'll get into that a little bit right now. But let's just go back to my reform. I went off base a little bit to show how it could be done in the current system, but now let's go all the way back into my reform. You select your education CRA. The parent selects their education CRA. And then the schools select their education CRAs. Who's going to regulate them? So it's a lot involved there. So there has to be an agreement. The school gets to select their CRA. If you select a different one, doesn't mean that you get to do what you want to do. You have to coordinate and organize and cooperate with your school. Now, if your school is not doing what you want them to do, then you can go in with another CRA, another school. You get to have choices. If you don't want a ton of funding, you want to go more on the cheap and economize, so you're not being taxed throughout your life tremendously, you can do that too and do some of the work yourselves. Do 2 or 3 days of school versus 5-day-a-week school. You can still get a good education going 2 or 3 days and doing the rest at home. I mean, there's proof of that all around. Many people do a model like that within the homeschool communities. Let's keep on going. The Education Sector Board must create a responsible transition from all government-funded education. This includes K through 12, colleges, and is all-inclusive from birth to death. So they have to do a transition. The government education assets must transition to free enterprise. Thus, they use Sector 12's standard transition. This is the debt one. We sell all government assets, all public school buses, all public schools, all public equipment. If it belongs to the school, if it belongs to the government, we sell it. We sell it to now. Who's going to buy it? Well, obviously, private schools need to have it. The new CRAs have to have it. Most likely, you're going to have an investment firm come in and buy the actual school building and start renting out rooms. CRAs are going to buy a school building. Those things are still needed. Now, the school building is going to be an asset. Most likely within our monetary system, they're going to bring money as an exchange for that asset, kind of like a loan with the school building as an asset behind it. With the reliability that money's going to flow in through many different mechanisms, people paying tuition and the like, people getting share loans. It's all worked out. There's a lot. Read my website. There's a lot of blogs dealing with what I'm talking about. But we're selling all of it. That's going to pay down a lot of debt. Not only will it pay off construction loans for schools, but the ones that are already paid off, once we have a net sell-off, that money pays off debt because our country's in a tremendous amount of debt. So that has to be paid off first. But the assets are not going anywhere. They still need to be in use. They'll be rented out or bought by schools, by investment firms, by whoever, by CRAs, and then they're not just transferred to the CRAs. They have to buy them. Okay, it's all highly important that we keep on coming back to this one. You select your CRA, your education CRA. They determine funding and benefits. We'll get into the transition now and how that's going to work a little bit. But going forward, most likely what's going to happen is your K through kindergarten through 6th grade, or until the child hits 13, the parents are responsible for that education, and any long-term agreements, debts, and loans will be on the parent's income, the parent's real estate value, or the like, or just the parents, whatever contract they make, it will be with that school or that school CRA, and or a separate financial arrangement with the bank to say, I want my child, this is paid for my child, and I'm going to pay for it by giving you an asset of a share loan over a long period of time, or a short period of time, or however you want to do it. It's your contract with the bank, and that's worth something, and that's going to give you money for the tuition. And the rating system is going to give a lot of good information. That's going to be so powerful in this. Don't get me wrong. That's going to be so incredibly powerful. And rating floors are not going to be playing a big role. We'll talk about the rating floor for educational neglect in a little bit. There's a clause in there. But you're going to see where the financial systems, the share loans, they're going to have ratings on it as well. Maybe not so many floors on that, but they're going to say, you don't want to do this. You don't want to give over 5% of your income for one-year tuition. That's crazy talk. That's way too much, and you're just putting yourself in a situation you can't get out of. There will be a grading system that's going to inform parents, no, that's way too much. This is more reasonable, and there's going to be competition for that loans and the 9 yards. Okay. Let's talk about how we, people who already went through the public school system, they got the benefit of a publicly funded education. Regardless of whether you think that was valuable or not, they paid money towards you. The current education tax will continue for the people who directly benefited from government-funded education. That means if you went through the public school system. If you did not, you were homeschooled or private school, then you don't have to pay for some of these taxes. So, the current education tax will continue for the people who directly benefited from government-funded education before the transition to the CRA structure. So there's a line drawn before and after. Before, if you already got benefited from it, right now you're looking at taxes for the rest of your life. Real estate taxes and state sales taxes to pay for education. That's just a normal thing that's going to happen if we don't move to a new system. You're going to be paying for your education for the rest of your life through real estate taxes and from income taxes. And maybe some other taxes, business taxes and the like. But mainly, I'm just going to stay with sales taxes, income taxes, and real estate taxes. But I'm going to stay with income and real estate. Okay, so they already gave you the benefit. You had to pay for it. Plus, we have a huge debt we have to pay for. Our government's in massive debt. So this is part of the way. You got your benefit. Everybody who's going to get educated in the future, they're going to have their own individual share loans unless they pay for it right up front. But if they want to pay for it long term, like we currently do, they're going to be individual share loans, maybe grouped together with other people per school, per class, depending on how they want to do it, but individual free market decisions from a business like a bank and the individual for that product. Education share loans, education capital. Okay, long story short, so if you got benefited before, you still have to pay taxes the rest of your life, just like you do now. So before this transition, okay, so you still have to pay taxes, and that's going to help pay off a lot of the debt that we currently have. Not just education debt, but debt, Social Security debt, and the like. The other video on Social Security had partial payment through a mechanism, but this is another one. This is a tax. You got benefited if you went through public school system before the structure changes. You benefited. You're already on the hook for paying taxes for life, so this continues that. Okay, into that story right now. Okay, the funds collected pay down government debt subject to Section 12, which is the debt section. This tax is prorated based on the years enrolled in government-funded education, subject to the next 3 clauses. So I have 3 more clauses. So if you were in the public school system for only a couple of the years, you only pay partial taxes. So there's a system I'm going to have for the next 3 clauses. Let's go over it. So The education tax will transition to share loans, so it's not going to be a tax from the government anymore. It's going to be a share loan from your CRA, Sector 25, which is identity sector. They're dealing with a lot of taxes. And so that sector, that will go, all that money will be going towards, darn it, my light fell. Anyway, all that money will be going towards paying down debt. Okay. Debt obligations information will be given to Sector 25. Real estate value share loans on a personal residence and income share loans are individual income. So it's definitional right now. I just want to make sure we are defining our terms. These are not business taxes. These are personal income taxes and personal residence taxes. Not if you own additional properties for rental or whatever, that's not that. If you own a business building, that's not that. It's residential. So I'll do definitional on this. Okay. Now let's talk about age 0 through 13. Mainly K through 13 here. Okay. K through the age of 13. Make sure I get it right. For every year, a child directly benefited from government-funded education. That's just think public school when I say that, but it might be a little bit different. Under the age of 13, so if you're under the age of 13 and you benefited from government-funded education, the parents will have a lifetime obligation of a 0.5% income share loan. So if that's for every year. So if you do that for 6 years, that's 3%. 0.5 times 6 years is 3%. But if you have more than one child, that can go up higher. But down at the bottom here, you're going to see that it maximizes at 5%. So if you have several kids, it does maximize. So we did not have this deal set up. They have to pay something, but we did not have this deal set up that the more kids you have, the more you pay in taxes. But this is a new system, and you did get benefit. The parents did benefit by government paying for multiple children going to education. But there is a balance here. Is it fair? Obviously not. But the current system is nowhere close to being fair. Everybody pays taxes, but about 15% of the people don't get a benefit of a government-funded education. Only people who send their children to public schools do. About 15% of the people don't. Highly unfair right now. So I'm trying to get this as fair as possible. And if somebody can make a case that should be done a little bit differently, I'm willing to listen. So a lifetime obligation of a 0.5% income share loan times the number of years. Most likely it's going to max out at 5%. If you had 2 kids going through 6 or 7 years of K through 12, you're going to max out at 5%. But if you only have one child and you only went through 2 or 3 years and then you homeschooled or private school, you might only have 1 or 2% of income share loan for life. Okay, and real estate value share loans, which means a share of your real estate. We have a real estate tax right now. It's usually roughly 1% of the price of your home per year. So if you have a $200,000 home, you pay $2,000 a year for your real estate taxes. That pays for education right now. So if you have a $300,000 or $400,000 house, you pay $3,000 or $4,000. That pays for education right now. Most real estate taxes pay for that. So we're going to go with that type of loan too. We're going to split it up. And I did the math and I did 0.07% yearly real estate value loan. So that's yearly. So if your kids went through 7 years, and let's say you have 3 kids, and they went through all 7 years, K through 12, that's 21 times that. Well, that gets up pretty high. I max that out as half a percent of your real estate value. So right now, real estate value is roughly real estate taxes are roughly 1%, but this is going to be 0.5. Now, this is for the parents now. For the kids age 0 through age 13, not grade 13, age 13. The parents are responsible. So but there is a minimum. If you choose not to work, you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever the case may be, you still have to pay a minimum, and I do 0.2% of the average per capita national income, and a 0.04% average per capita national real estate value share loans. I did the math. I thought about it a long time. I'm not the best mathematician in the world. If somebody can make the case that this needs to be adjusted a little bit, I'm okay with that. But these are the numbers I come up with. 5% income tax max and a 0.5% of your yearly real estate value. That's less than what we currently have right now. This is something that's doable, and this is going to defray a tremendous amount of cost that we have in the system, a tremendous amount of debt. So let's go from, this is age 0 through 13, or mainly grades K through 13. Sometimes they have payment, government pays for preschool, daycare, and the like. I don't want to get too involved in that, whether that's education or not. But when it maxes out at that 0.5 and that 5%, that is the max out on that. So that's going to catch a lot of runaway numbers going too far up. Okay, let's go with people who are 13 years old to 18 years old. And actually 13 and older, even above 18. So this includes college as well. And if you're 50 years old and you went through a couple of years of college at 50, then that includes you as well, especially if it's government-funded education like a public college. Okay, for every year a person over the age of 13 directly benefited from government-funded education, so public school most likely, before the passage of this amendment, that person will have a lifetime obligation of a 0.5%. So this goes not on the parent, but on the student now, the teenager. That person will have a lifetime obligation of a 0.5% income share loan per year. He went on there. There's no top limit on this one. No top limit on this one. 0.5% per year share loan, income share loan, and a 0.07% yearly real estate value share loan. These per year share loans have a minimum of 0.2, because we always have a minimum. Because if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, that's fine. Work in the charity economy, but you had an education. The government paid for it. You have to pay it back. And this is, if you nothing else, you pay them back through the charity economy. You can take in kids. You can tutor kids. You can go be a teacher's aide. There's a lot of things you can do as a stay-at-home mom to give value to society. And you can do that through the charity economy, through the people you like, the charities that you like, the systems that you like, through your church, whatever you want to. But you got the education. They educated you. They put money out. People put money out for you. We as a society went into major debt, and we have to pay that debt off. So there's a minimum. I don't want to go into that any longer, but I can argue that case. Okay, so I put a minimum out there, but there's no top level for this. Now, this is for each individual teenager. So you can't have, the parents might have had 4 or 5 kids. So we want to put a top limit on that. Because we did not have a deal with them. The more kids you have, the more you have to pay. We did not have that deal with them. So I do partially that, but I stop it at a maximum. This one, if you just go through grades 7 through 12, that's 3% income share loan, and 6, that's about 0.42, a little bit less than 0.5% of your real estate value, yearly real estate value, share loans. So that's similar, 5% or 3% income and 0.42% real estate value. So that's normal. I looked at what's normal out there and what we can do. But if you went through college, especially publicly funded college, and there could be partial funded, there could be prorated, there can be a lot of different things going on, because colleges, let's say you go to a state college that were majorly government funded, but you pay for all of yours, there's a lot of complications in there. Don't get me wrong. Nothing's fair. Nothing is fair. What we currently are doing is not fair whatsoever. We are so unfair with our education funding right now. It's overwhelmingly unfair. So let's keep on going. These per year share loans have a minimum 0.2, so there's a minimum on this, of the average per capita national income and a 0.04 average per capita national real estate value. So those, I do a minimum. You can work out the numbers. I worked it out, and everybody has to pay something, especially if you got educated at public expense. We went into debt for that. Parents have the right to control their children's education. Okay, this is a separate clause. This is a parental rights education clause. This is a civil liberty. Parents have the right to control their children's education subject to parents' family law CRAs. Starting at the age of 13, teenagers progressively take control of their education. Control of education is a civil liberty. Look at my civil liberties. Look at the 30% vote to increase civil liberty rating floors. Look at all that stuff. It's super important, but parents have the right to control their children's education, especially when they're under the age of 13. When they're over the age of 13, I think I have it in a second, teenagers slowly gather their right and control over their education. So I had that in a few different clauses about children or teenagers starting to slowly, progressively take their responsibilities in taxes and fees and also their rights. Okay, the education rating system must set a rating floor regarding child education neglect. So that's where that comes in. If somebody says, I'm not educating my children, I'm not going to do anything, no, that doesn't work either. The family law CRA enforce child education neglect violations. So this is one of the very few cross-sector rating systems and rating floors and family laws enforcing that. So, but the rating system is going to create the rating floor, but the family law CRAs, they're in charge of families. And a family law CRA is going to be in charge of foster care. They're going to be in charge of taking children away from their parents if there's major neglect or abuse or whatever. The foster system that we currently have, the family law CRA is going to be in charge of that. And their CRAs, their members are going to be in charge of that. So there's a lot involved in that, and obviously there's going to be some charity is going to be built into that. They're going to be really tapping the charity system to help out with that. And I can just think through my own thoughts about how great this can be, how many new innovative ideas there's going to be involved in this. Okay, this is not a clause. I'm just going to talk about the transition for a minute. There is a timeline for a transition in every sector, and I have a system for that. But let's just think about it for a minute. All current legislators appoint initial leaders. So if city council, mayors, all House of Delegate members, state legislative seats, they all appoint somebody, and then those people gather up in like-minded groups. You get above 5%, you stay below 20%. If you get above 20%, you separate into two groups of like-minded people. Then members keep on going into those people. And then that percentages switch over to the members. The members have to be 5%, and between 5% and 20%. And then very rapidly, once the members are all there, they're going to elect their leaders. So the transition, the legislators, they appoint initial leaders. But then once members, citizens, join together and join CRAs, then very rapidly they're going to elect their leaders. So the initial leaders aren't going to have much power. They're going to set things up initially, but then the power is going to quickly revert to CRA elected leaders. So that's highly important to understand. We have to have a transition. And that's a good way of doing transition. That's going to be a transition for a lot of sectors, by the way, in many areas, that type of model. So let's keep on going. They're going to elect new leaders, all inclusive of minor regulations over private schools. So a CRA can be like a public school where they're going to hire the teachers, build the school buildings, buy the school buildings, and do everything for them. And they're going to charge a cost for that. Share loans or initial cost that you have to pay right then and there. Or some CRA is going to just be regulatory bodies that regulate schools and private schools and homeschoolers. with minor regulations. But only one of these have to stay secular. I mean, you don't have to stay secular. You can be a Christian or Muslim or Jewish or whatever you want. As long as somebody has the option of being secular, you're good. And one of the CRAs will stay secular. Now, all of them don't have to go massive into religion. Some might, but most likely a lot of them will just be minor related to religion. Minor Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, where it's in the background and you get some of the values from your religion. And other ones will go much more into it. But as long as you only have one secular, everybody gets to pick their CRA. And being secular is one of the worst things we've ever did in the public school system. Obviously, we don't want the government running religion. But it's one of the worst things about having a monopolized school system. Because we had to go secular not to have them teach religion. But because they went secular, they taught against religion. A lot of things went wrong. I don't want to get into that subject right now. I have blogs on that subject. Okay, each CRA sets up share loans or allows parents to work out their finances on their own through the banks and the different things. So you can have a whole classroom of, let's say, 100 seniors going through the system, and you group all those share loans together. So you get that, you do a risk sharing. What is that called? Financial risk sharing, insurance type of thing. Risk pool is what I'm thinking about. Okay, let's keep on going. Okay, I'm pretty much done with this video here. Here's all 30 sectors. Here's 15 of the sectors. Education is here on sector 22. I think I have about 5 more sectors to go because I already did a few of the ones ahead of here in a joint one. And then this one's always important to come back. CRAs, they do the funding, or they collect the funding. There's a lot of ways to do a funding. There's a lot of business models. You can have a public schools type one where they do everything and they collect the money, and how they collect the money can be by percentages or by one flat fee or however they want to do it. But when you have 12 different CRAs, you're going to pick one that you like best. Right now, your option is one or being out of the funding mechanism of government funding mechanism altogether. Everybody pays taxes currently in the current system, and only people who choose to sell their rights to the government, their parental rights to the government, get funded. And that's what they're doing, is they're selling their parental rights to the government. But now you get to either sell your parental rights to the CRA that you choose, or not sell them at all and have it minor regulations just to make sure you're taking care of educational actions. Anyway, this is July of 2021. I hired my very first social media person. Not many hours right now, but she's editing some stuff right now for me. She's going to start doing some social media stuff for me. I'm ready for this all these ideas to break out into the open, start doing interviews, and really get these ideas out there. Competitive governance is where we need to go in America. It's the next frontier of freedom and liberty. Next frontier of when we divide, we can live so much better together. Think about what we did with religion. Before, governmental officials that we elect or had ruling over us through kings and stuff, they were our religious leaders as well, where they controlled the church. And sometimes the church controlled the religious leaders, and it became messy. When we divide, Muslims, Protestants, Catholics, Jewish, and they get to rule themselves, a lot of really great things happened. A lot of people were not at each other's throats. Right now in the public school systems, everybody's at each other's throats. We should teach this, or we should teach this. This should not be taught, or this should be taught. We should be teaching math this way or that way. We should not be teaching history this way or that way. We need to divide, then have like-minded people group together and educate their children the way they want to, like-minded ways. No more monopolized. Butting at heads with each other, it comes directly from the monopolized nature of it. Whoever wins those elections for school board, for House of Delegates, state legislative seats, Congress and like, They get to make the decisions for you on how you educate your children right now. In my system, we divide in a good way, not a bad way. We divide. I'll teach my children this way. This group says I'll teach my children this way. Let's say in a more conservative Heritage Foundation way. And this one does more the Brookings Institute liberal way. That's 2. We're going to go with 12 different ones. And then some of them are going to be a soft regulations where everybody gets to do what they want. So it's not just 12. It's ultimately anybody who wants to educate their children the way they want to educate them. As long as you are not education neglect, which means, hey, by the time they're 10 years old, they better be able to do some significant amount of reading and significant amount of reading and writing. By the time they hit 12, some more. We measure them every 2 or 3 years just to make sure they're not, we only get into yearly or monthly reviews if they're on that bubble where they're so far behind. Anyway, there's a lot going on, and I just want to let you know what's going on there. Anyway, please consider a donation for the movement. I think I said that already. And until the next video.